Hi there, Dr. Paul Donovan here, and welcome to this teaching video. Today we're talking about how to use your power better, especially as it relates to being judicious or indulgent. Now, this is a really important scale around which to consider how you're using your power. Now, I'm choosing this particular scale to look at because it's one of 7 that I'm speaking to, and I have videos on the other 6 that all come and relate to the work and research of Dr. Julie Diamond and her team, where she amassed lots of narratives and anecdotes from managers and workers and consultants from all over the globe around leaders who exercised their powers really well and those who didn't. Very interestingly, once they were all themed, there was this particular theme emerge around being indulgent versus judicious. So you may not have thought of this one before, and I'm certain this can be culturally affected, perhaps all of them to some degree, but my experience is that this one is culturally affected, especially as working in Asia, where I've done lots of work in Asia and Singapore and discovered that many leaders are experienced as being very judicious. It's quite an asset. It's quite a special asset. But what do I mean by that? What does this scale actually measure? Well, it measures whether you as a manager place the interests of the organization above your own. And to that end, whether you refrain from exploiting the perks and privileges that come to you through your role and the privileges associated with that role. So do you get that? So sometimes we place our own needs above those of the organizations, or we just bring a sense of entitlement to the perks and the privileges. And if you do so, you'll be experienced as indulgent. So how might you be experienced if you're experienced as an indulgent manager? Someone who is seen to be satisfying their own needs and utilizing the perks and privileges that come with your role to do so, the benefits you have. So this can be subtle or not so subtle. Here's a not so subtle example. Perhaps you just come and go as you please. As you're getting more senior, you feel less accountable to explain why you arrive very late or why you leave early or why you spend nights there in the office. But actually, it might be required that you explain this. You explain how and why it's important that you do this, if indeed you do. Because not to do so means that you're going to be experienced as indulgent, someone who's utilizing your rank to get away with stuff that people below you can't get away with so easily. They can't get away with it. You might be able to get away with it. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the dry cleaning issue. Do you ever get someone to do your dry cleaning? Getting someone to run an errand for you? I know that's probably very 90s, but it still happens. Someone who's doing a little bit of searching for you, finding out whether Thailand is the best place to visit. I don't know. All of these things, if you are utilizing resources for the organization for your own needs, especially in a way that doesn't acknowledge that you are, you'll be experienced as indulgent. And if you are, well, that's dangerous because you're experienced as someone as a leader who is not using their power mindfully. Not using their power mindfully. If you're experienced in the middle, well, you're being somewhat responsible, but you've got room to grow. And if you're experienced as someone who's judicious, wow, you're experienced as someone who's modest and discreet about their status and their position. You're not just utilizing your role and the privileges that come in a way that's not mindful and that is not transparent and not explained. So that's being judicious. There's no doubt in anyone's mind, if you're judicious, that you are there to meet the needs of the organization and to fulfill the obligations you have in your role. So what are the well, first of all, how is this a power issue? Maybe it's already plain to you, but it definitely is. If you use whatever privileges you have, whatever freedoms that are given to you because of your seniority as a means to meet your own needs, as a means to make sure you do choose the right holiday destination, or that your dry cleaning's all done, or that you can come and go as you please, then that's a misuse of power, my friends. That's a misuse of power. And you may be relatively unaware of it if you're the manager. These things happen subtly. But I want to assure you, those underneath you, they'll be much more aware of it than you are. We have a real sense of it. We do know when our bosses have a sense of entitlement and they're utilizing their privileges to meet their own needs. And so they're likely to be more aware of it than you unless you pause and think about it. Do you arrive just late at meetings because you can, because you're the boss? I don't mean, and most bosses, often when they arrive at meetings, it's because they're busy. But do they arrive without apology, without explanation? Because you're the boss and it's my privilege to arrive late and it's very hard to challenge me because I'm out there saving the world as the boss and I'm more senior. This is actually just indulgent behavior. It's indulgent to be arriving late. Do you notice how you arrive late for people to meetings where people report to you, but you're less likely to arrive late to a meeting of the board or people who are more senior than you? And if that's you, then I want you just to be awake compassionately to your own indulgent behavior. It's indulgent. Do you flip your laptop open when you're in meetings with people who are less senior than you, but you wouldn't dare do it with your boss? That's indulgent behavior. You're utilizing the privileges of your rank to allow you to meet your own needs, to do other things, to do other work at a time when others can't do that so easily. So, this is why it's a misuse of power. So the outcomes of this, well, you know what? They can be far-reaching and they can be even impossible to map. Believe me, they can go in all directions. But they can be catastrophic breaches. You could ultimately be misusing organizational funds. You know, that's a catastrophic breach. But what you have more likely is if you do it, then those people around you and even those reporting to you will do it when you're not there. You're going to be socializing a behavior around indulging your needs and utilizing organizational resources to do that. So this is one of the outcomes. If you're experienced as judicious, then actually that's very helpful. You are setting up a culture of rightfully acknowledging you're there to fulfill a role and placing the organizational needs in an appropriate place while you're at work. And that's a great outcome. You're going to set up an entirely different culture. So now let's go to what to do about it. I want to give you these videos practical tips and how-tos. For those of us who experience as a little more indulgent, or you suspect you might be at times, it's time to start explaining what you're doing and why. Fill in the gaps. If you don't let people know why you're arriving at midday or leaving at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, or you do it routinely and not explaining it, then actually you're setting up something in the organization. Now, and it's not that these people the people who report to you have nothing more to do than to gossip about your time movements. But it might be important that you do offer some explanation, at least to begin with, so that they know why you're doing what you're doing. It's such an important practice. You may not have to do it forever, but if you want to set up yourself as judicious and in a team that prioritizes the organizational needs, then begin to apply this rule to yourself. And if you think you might already experienced as judicious, then my advice to you is just a little more sensitive. Notice when your needs might collide with those of the organization. Bring more awareness of this. And here's the other piece of advice I'd give you. If you're a senior team member, you may notice that when you come together in your senior team, you have needs of the organization and the team that's underneath you, but you may also have needs that you need to look at as a whole organization. So if you want to avoid being indulgent, don't just let the needs of your own team override the needs of the whole organization. This is where you need to place on hold, or at least hold gently, the needs of your own team and consider the wider view of the organization. And if you're a senior team member or part of an executive team, to do that, to actually drop your own team agenda and consider what's required of the whole organization is indeed judicious. That's a great use of your power. It's a great use of your power. And not to do so, to continue to grind the agenda of your own team, forgetting the agenda or the needs of the organization as a whole, if you're a member of a senior team, is indeed indulgent. So this is the advice I'd give you even if you're down the judicious end, you can take it another level. So here's the exercise I'd like to ask you to do now. Just to right now in this video, do something that's going to enable you to be more judicious. So I'd like you to consider your role, and I'd like you to consider what is the noble aim of what you do. What is its highest intent? I know that part of you will be thinking, I've got to meet budgets or I've got to bring projects in on time. Do you know that story about the three people who are all chipping stones and building a building, and they were all asked what they did? One said they were just chipping away. One said, I'm building this wall. And the third person said, I'm building a cathedral. People are going to come here and connect with each other and maybe with something beyond them. You see, that third person had kept in mind the noble goal of their role. Of course, they were all just chipping away at rock, taking the edges off the corners. That's actually what they were all doing. But one person kept the noble goal alive in their mind. I'd like to ask you, what is the noble goal of your role, of your team, or even of your organization? Is it there to do something that's really great for the community? Something more than just profit? What's that profit really in service of? And then I'd like to ask you, as you consider that, there's some attributes that are truly in line with that noble goal. There's some ways that you already behave which are completely consistent with that. And perhaps there's some ways that you're behaving which are a little inconsistent, that don't quite sit comfortably with the noble goal of you, your team, and your organization. I wonder whether some behaviors that you have, or maybe your team has, don't quite sit as comfortably. Could this be an exercise that you could sit down with, not just with yourself, but also with your team? Consider, what is the bigger why of our work? And which of our behaviors truly align with that? And which ones for you as a leader perhaps don't, where maybe your own needs are overridden the needs of the organization and you've become indulgent. Okay, I hope this exercise is helpful. I wish you well in doing it. I love to teach and share with people how they might use their power more consciously. Check out our other videos. I hope you really enjoy them. Share them with others, and I'll speak to you real soon. Bye.